what does it look like to take something from an idea through to the pitch to selling it?
Everyone has these big dreams of, I'm gonna write the next greatest, biggest show, and it's really tough, especially with how volatile the industry is. 99 out of 100 will be no, but one will be yes.
Something that I guess I don't fully understand is, what does writing look like in reality, or sort of hybrid reality content look like? What is the role of a writer?
It's kind of unfair to call it unscripted.
Cindy Bertram has had an incredible television career spanning multiple decades. She's worked as both a TV writer, an executive producer, and a show creator, working with companies like HGTV, Food Network, and so many others. She's also authored her own cookbook, as well as undergone many other creative endeavors. Today, we sit down with her to explore the lessons she's learned over the course of her incredible career. That and so much more on the way. Let's get right into it. Cindy, the first time I met you, you shared an incredible story about one of your first jobs at Paramount. And you shared with us the story of you accidentally deleting.
I shared
some
my
really
epic
important
failure,
files.
yes.
Yeah, but you also managed to kind of spin it around into a win, and you really applied yourself. And would you mind kind of sharing that story with us today?
Sure. It's my learn every job in the room mantra. So when I was just out of college, I wanted to go into television producing. And back then what you did is you went to the studios and you took a typing test to be someone's assistant, basically. And that was kind of how you started. And I got a job as the assistant to the executive in charge of production at Hard Copy, which is a tabloid television series from the 90s that was very similar to Inside Edition. It was the sister show to Entertainment Tonight, kind of the sister tabloidy show. But it was news, and it aligned with my journalism major, and I was really excited. So I'm really paying attention to the writing and producing, not really paying attention to the control room full of people that I ordered lunch for every day. And about 4 months after I started, the director came running up the stairs, and I was at the top of the staircase, and he pointed at me, didn't even know my name, and he said, you know how to type, come downstairs. He had fired the person who was doing the graphics for the show, and back then it was pretty simple. It was a keyboard, and it was the lower thirds that you type someone's name on the news when they're talking, and you throw a photo up over their head. And I went downstairs, I sat in the chair, and, shaking, I did the show, but I did it. And it was basically just kind of keeping up with what they were doing and paying attention. And when they were talking about a story, I would put the name up and the technical director would put it in. Anyway, end of the day, I go back upstairs to my desk, and my boss, the executive in charge of production for the show, says, well, I guess you have to find your replacement. We're going to make you the Chiron operator of the show. And you have to join the union, and it's $3,000, but I guess I'll pay for that. And oh, by the way, you're going to make more than 2 times a week what you're making. And I went, okay, I'll do that. I'm 22
That's
years
incredible.
old. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
So
amazing.
I start into this career that I didn't plan on. I had some graphic knowledge. It was my other interest besides journalism. But what I did one day that was catastrophic a couple months into this job was I decided to tidy things up and organize things, which is another side of me. And I blew out the entire hard drive of a decade of graphics for this top show that was in syndication that had a lot of information stored in this machine that I completely cleaned out. I realized what I had done. I freaked out on the inside, but I'm working in a room full of guys. So I go up to the director. I say, I think I made a mistake. I think I cleared out the graphics, and I think we're going to need to rebuild everything. And he said, oh, well, you can do that. We'll see you tomorrow. And he left. And I must have had a complete look of panic and nausea on my face. And the technical director said, here's how you use the switcher, showed me how to use the fader. The tape guy said, here's how you use the machines in here. The audio guy said, here's how you use the machines in here. And basically for the next 18 hours, with a lot of tears, I completely rebuilt the entire system and taught myself every job in the room. And the next day, no shower, no food, a lot of tears. The entire crew came in and I had made myself ready for the show. And I never forgot it because I learned every job in the room and it allowed me to know every aspect of that show. So it just kind of became my mantra of what I would do in the future at any job I went to, no matter what, because from there I went into a producing career that shaped me because I knew how television was made from sitting in this control room for 15 years. So anyway, that's my story. Don't ever press enter when it says reformat. Not unless you want to. That's my tip.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And the adversity that you had to overcome in such a short period of time, I can't even imagine the anxiety, and that's incredible.
That is incredible. I'm so sorry that was a lesson you had to learn. You said something that was interesting though to me. You said you were in a room full of guys. Were you the only woman?
I
in that
was.
room,
Well,
or
the
in
lawyer on the show who came in for the actual recording of the show, and the executive producer were women. But as far as crew, back then, director, technical director, lighting, the audio girl back then was a woman, come to think of it. And but everybody, majority was male. And so we watched Sports Center every morning, and they, did not care what language they used. And definitely there was some harassment, I would say, but not, it was the 90s. And there's no excuse. But it was, what it did was, and I have brothers, so I did have a bit of a thicker skin anyway, but I really can hold my own with strong personalities because of that experience. So I think, now it's a little more evenly matched throughout production. Women are, in technical positions as much as men are now. But back then it really was like I was the little girl who did the graphics, in the room. And it does make you have a thicker skin and have a backbone. And I learned how to stick up for myself. And I did, by the way, spill soup into my keyboard 3 months later. So at first my nickname was Hard Drive, and then my nickname became Soup forever. So
My goodness.
a little clumsy.
Wow.
But I always managed to fix what I broke.
Yeah, well, and Tay and I are very young and very early in our careers, and something that's very important to us is creating spaces where everyone's treated fairly. And so is there any advice you have to us when it comes to curating environments to make sure that everyone feels represented and safe?
I think the biggest thing, and what I really strive to do, is teach what I know. And, it is a competitive world, but it only helps me to include people in the conversation and to give any tips and strengths that I may have, and to also provide opportunity when I can. The reason I'm talking to you guys is I make it my goal for students, for anyone who wants to be in the business. I'll tell you anything you want to know, because it doesn't behoove me to keep anything a secret. That's not going to help me. What may help me and what will likely help me is telling you guys everything and everyone I know. And then you guys get successful and you call me up and say, hey, we have something that we think you might be great for. And so all that does is share the wealth. So my biggest thing is really, male or female, to give anyone an equal opportunity to have information. Because if you have information and you're not sharing it, what's the point?
Sure.
And that's really kind of what I live by in any facet, is if I know something, I'll share it. There's nothing to lose.
And I think we're incredibly grateful for that. And likewise, hopefully anyone who's listening appreciates the sharing of your knowledge and your experiences, because you have had an incredible career. So the chance for us to sit down and talk to you is really amazing.
And I'll take it a step further. I don't think that's necessarily something that's encouraged in our education right now.
Yeah.
I think about camera teams specifically. I feel like there's a lot of, for lack of a better term, gatekeeping around, hey, I have this understanding of this camera, but I own this camera, so I'm not going to show anyone how to use it. I'm going to make myself valuable by creating I don't know, the monopoly of having this information.
And some people,
Yeah.
you know what? That is the way that they have made their careers, and that is the way they continue to be successful. I don't believe in it. That's not who I am. You know, I just took my 17-year-old nephew on his college tours last week.
Oh, wow.
And we were in a production facility at a university, and the guy opened up the gear cabinet and he was showing him all the cameras that the students get to use. And my nephew uses a bunch of them and knows, and they were having this great conversation about which cameras were better. And I thought, this is how it's supposed to be. This shared knowledge and how quickly technology changes is what helps things get greater. And I think that, you know, the days of like covering your test paper, yes. Is it your work? Absolutely. But if you have knowledge of something that can help someone improve, that just makes it better for you. So I get the competitive side of it. I get I want to have my own individual talents, but you will. And, you know, everyone who works on shows and does what I do, we all know how to do the same thing, but how we do it is what makes us successful and gives us our individuality. Everyone can learn. It's who you are that makes someone want to hire you. Everyone will learn how to use the same camera. Everyone will have the same skills, especially technically, but it's who you are in that environment that gets you the job.
Right.
So
I think that's a big part of this.
I think it's something to live by, truly, because it just gives you more experience, more attention, and you're the nice guy in the room. There's nothing wrong with that.
And I think that's the key, because the art that we make is not painting. We don't get to lock ourselves away and do it by ourselves. We need huge teams of people. So for everyone to grow together means we can all come together to make new, different kinds of art. So I've never understood why we would ever try to like restrict or hide access to knowledge. And like what Tay was saying, I think that's part of the goal of the podcast, is to just make it accessible. If we can create a platform where people can still learn and get access to the information you're sharing right now, I think that's really important.
Most definitely.
It's great that you guys are learning this now, because some people don't learn it till they're 20 years older than you are. So the fact that you guys are doing this now and at the level you're doing it is fantastic, because you'll only grow from here. So I'm all for it.
I really want to explore your writing career to start us off. Something that I guess I don't fully understand is, what does writing look like in reality, or sort of hybrid reality content look like? What is the role of a writer?
So the role of a writer is different from show to show in unscripted. And it's kind of unfair to call it unscripted. Reality is a better term for it. You are writing the flow, really. If it's voiceover, you're writing it. You're writing word for word. But if it's an in-scene situation, you're basically outlining what the talent is going to say. You're telling them what you want them to say, and then they say it in their own words. So writing in unscripted television is really to build the story and to build the structure and basically get the show to a time that it needs to be at, and then the talent will infuse it with their own words. So if it's a home improvement show or if it's a food show, you're basically saying, okay, in this scene, I want you to talk about what happened to this room, or I want you to talk about how this meal came to be, and you're going to give them the hit points, and you're going to give them some of the catchphrases that you want them to say, but inevitably it'll be their words. Voiceover is the strongest part of any unscripted show, and the narration of how the show gets from one place to the next and how the story arc is told. It's very similar to scripted, but you have that ability to be a little more organic and to have a scene unfold. And in fact, many things that I do is shoot the entire thing first, and then I write the voiceover. Because then you're really writing to what happened. And you're able to weave the story together the way it actually unfolded.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. What does timeline look like as far as you're given video or whatever, and then, or I guess, we're going to go to Santa Monica. We have these 3 houses, and these are a couple. What does that look like?
It depends on what show it is. I have done shows where I've had better part of, 9 months to do it. I've done shows where I've had 6 weeks. So it really depends on what it is, what the production is, where it is, and how far along it is in production at that point. I have to say, I'm not sure if I love the thrill of the fast-paced, no sleep, get it done more, because I did used to work in live television. So it's that like, oh, it's over. You're done. And if something drags on for a year, it kind of becomes a little more stressful because it feels like the light isn't at the end of the tunnel for a really long time.
Sure.
But when someone completely screws you and says, I need this on the air in 6 weeks, you have no choice. And you're working to death, but then you're done. And that's kind of the coolest part. And I always used to joke in live TV that if you screwed up, nobody saw it twice. It was over. So it's a little harder with streaming because if you screw up and it really does make it on air, it's there forever.
I guess, like, what does it look like if it's something where, like, maybe you're revealing like a house renovation to people, and to what extent is that written, or like what are the people told in advance of that reveal?
It depends on the show, and it depends on, HGTV historically does things a certain way. Netflix does things a certain way. It really depends on the arc of the show, what the show is about. If, in the case of Fixer Upper, the homeowners aren't really involved. It was really them kind of saying, okay, we trust you, we'll see you when it's done. And they're involved in a little bit of choosing the fixtures and the things like that, but they really did put the trust in the talent and the designers. So sometimes they don't see anything. Sometimes they are every step of the way. And it really is the comfort level of the homeowners. It's the format of the show. There was a show on HGTV last year where the homeowners basically handed the talent their credit card for 72 hours. And she did whatever she wanted. And it was called Home in a Heartbeat. And she started as a TikTok star, actually, Gailey Alex. She started with TikTok and was doing it as her side hustle. She was a accountant at a huge firm in New York, I think. And this was what she loved. And so she did it and pitched the show to them, and it did great. And she, homeowners just handed her a credit card. I'm like, I would like to be able to do that.
The trust you have to have.
Right?
Oh, I would
exactly.
love to give someone a credit card and be like, make that.
Right?
That'd
Could
be
you
amazing.
imagine? Here,
Right
your
here.
budget is $200,000 in 72 hours. Have fun.
How do you even spend that in 72 hours? That's
Oh,
incredible.
I could spend that.
I
know
can spend that. You can spend it on glasses alone, probably. See?
You get
He
me.
could, certainly.
So you get me. Get my priorities. Like,
Yeah.
I need a shelf for all my. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm
My husband can spend it on Hot Wheels.
That's incredible.
saying. I could too, actually. That's
So-
amazing.
From sort of the writing portion of your career, what are some of the most important lessons you've learned from that? And how is that still serving you today?
So my writing career has taken a couple of different avenues, and it actually started with a dating column in the Los Angeles Times. And I had always had that kind of dry, witty narrative in me, and everyone jokingly said I was like the LA Carrie Bradshaw from Sex and the City, but it was really more of a humorous way to talk about being single in LA. And and writing for a newspaper is an interesting way to start because you're conformed to a word count, and you have to really make this entertainment in a small form. And so that was really fun. And I was still doing graphics in TV at the time. I was working for Dr. Phil. And one thing about working in a control room for a writer or an aspiring writer is you are sitting next to the executive producer on one side. You're sitting next to the teleprompter on the other. So you are surrounded by words happening. And I had the ability to either notice mistakes or notice a lack of flow, or, and I could have some input over the years. And while I was there, a friend of mine had gotten a job at HGTV, and he sent me a script, and he said, I don't really love the tone of this. Is there any way, would you want to put your spin on it and just kind of put your Cindy voice on it? And I said, sure, that's fun. Never done that before. And it was called Dream Home. It was a show that they had done for years and years where they built a home and then gave it away. And so I took a stab at the script and just kind of made it more loose and more conversational. And these were back this was 2006 when HGTV was pretty traditional. And they liked it. And they hired me to write their next one. And then their next one. And then 15 years later, I basically had been freelancing as a writer, producer for them, and got the experience to do series and write a bunch of specials, and everyone joked that they could tell it was my show because my voice was in the writing. And that's when I say, teach everyone everything you know, because no one will sound like you. That's something only you can do.
I have so many responses to that. Just a bit of background about both of us. Spencer and I love writing. It's what I want to do when I grow up. I want to be a screenwriter, and I write all the time. And I try to explain to people why writing means so much to me. And I basically say it's an emotional playground for me to just kind of jump and climb on monkey bars and do my thing. What amazes me about hearing that is just, first of all, how joyful you are talking about it. That's a big part of me. That's so gratifying.
It doesn't matter what I write.
That's amazing. When you talk about how your friends, your colleagues are able to say, I know this is Cindy because of her voice and because I know her writing. Did you always have that? Did you always know this is how I write, this is my storytelling?
I think so.
Can you kind of describe what that is?
I mean, I was that kid in elementary school who was always writing, and I had to be at the top of the library list in the summer, having read the most books. And
yes.
And I think being a reader makes you a much better writer also.
Most definitely.
And, people who are in school and say, oh, I don't have time to read. Even if you read a little, it just kind of helps you separate from that process where you're so far in it that you can't figure out your voice. And I think because in my personality, I tend to be a little more sarcastic and a little drier. And I do go for the humor aspect of things, that I do have a more lighthearted approach to the way I write. And I don't want to say I use the same vernacular all the time, but there are certain keywords that I use a lot that I think people tend to identify with. Mm-hmm. But it's also mainly figuring out the voice of the talent you're writing for. Ghostwriting is a big part of what I do. And I used to blog for somebody as them. And she, at one point, said, I think you're funnier than I am. She said, you sound exactly like me, but I think you actually are funnier. And she said, so now I kind of want to be you. And it's really that identity thing where you want to put yourself into that talent's voice. And when you work with enough people over the years, you really have to take yourself out of it. And you have to, there's people I write for that I want it to be them instead of me. And I don't want it to be, oh, Cindy wrote this. I want it to be, Christina said this, And most of the time, they're saying it anyway, and I'm kind of just cleaning it up and making it more concise. So I can be as creative as writing a novel or writing a magazine article or writing a TV show. I wrote a cookbook last year, and that even still had writing in it for someone else. So it just allows you to be more versatile. I think, I wrote for all my school papers. I wrote for the yearbook. I did all those things that you do in school when you want to be a writer, but all it really did was continue to build up my voice. And I think you guys starting now with, really this desire to do what you're doing, you're you're as young as I was. So I think, 30 years from now, you'll have a lot under your belt like I do.
Most definitely. That I look forward to that day, and I think that's a beautiful moment, especially because Spencer and I met one another freshman year. Is that right now? About a year ago, which is wild.
Do you guys feel
over a
competitive
year
with
now.
each other?
Are we? Yes. Well, he can't play basketball very well, and he isn't a very good video game player compared to me. And listen, all love. It's just, is that fair?
Wow, I can't believe you said that.
No, seriously. No, it's adorable, but like
We need to
We
have
should
a
play
therapy
basketball
session.
sometime. We might, but I don't know. I think so much of the stuff we're doing together.
That's right.
That it's like when we win, we win together.
Mhm.
And even still, I think we're both so passionate and excited about each other that even if we had an independent win, we're just super excited about it because it's the same thing like you were saying. It's not about like holding back the success and the wins and the knowledge to ourselves. It's like we want each other to succeed. So like if Tay was randomly given an opportunity to write on a TV show and I was completely detached from it, I would be enthused out of my mind. I'd compete with him for how excited I was.
Don't
even
get
though
me
it'd be
wrong,
his
you would want
opportunity.
that job on the TV show too, but you would be happy for your friends. One of my friends has a
course,
for
huge
sure.
series debuting today, and I'm so excited for her because I know where it started, and to see that it dropped today is the coolest thing ever.
That's
Because
really
you just get to watch other people
amazing.
be successful. I don't have to be the boss. I will work on a show in any capacity. Well, it'll pay me, what I want to make. But I'll be working on a show to be able to work on a show and to make
Right.
something successful. And
Sure.
right now, I'm consulting on 2 things I'm not getting paid for. Because if those go, then it's beneficial. If they don't, it's just more experience. And I think that's another thing to remember too is everything is experience. It may not be exactly what you want to do. It may not be as much money as you think you should make, but it all counts and it all goes on your resume. And that's something I never forgot, in addition to learn every job in the room.
Yeah, of course.
Tay and I always say, in life, you either win or you learn. Like there is no lose, and there's always something to be gained from everything.
That's
So
a
I
really
think
good
it's
line. I
beautiful.
might steal it.
We need to
Please
crochet
do.
that somewhere. Get that on pillow.
Let's
I'd
do
love
it.
that.
That's your
Put it
tagline.
on the set, maybe.
That is your tag. We should put that. That's got to be a post or something.
I like it.
You mentioned some of your HGTV relationships and how you were freelance at the beginning and still are for 15 years. What is sustaining a relationship with, I don't want to use the word powerhouse, but a name brand name in the TV world? What does that look like?
I think one thing that, and this certainly was facilitated by the people I met in the industry, and one thing that I didn't really differentiate from was the network and the production company. They were both of equal value to me. So if I was hired by a production company, that meant just as much to me as being hired by a network, because one can't exist without the other. And whenever I tell someone who's looking for a job and they say, oh, I want to work at Food Network, I say, okay, well, go through the credits of all the shows that are on Food Network, and that's 50 different production companies. And you should reach out to all of them and see if they're hiring, because it's just as important. And it's really at all levels, behind the scenes, everyone's doing the same job. And I think being able to be that person at Discovery, or being able to be that person at a different production company and have the two be married together, is what kept me working, because I wasn't opposed to HGTV or Food Network or Travel Channel or someone saying, hey, we want you to go work at this production company in Montana for 3 months and help put this show in the format that we like. And I said, cool, I'll do it. And I think that the ability to be flexible and the ability to get to know different people over and over again, and then you can touch upon those relationships a decade later. So it was never being banished to go work at this place instead of this place. It was, I get to go work with a whole bunch of new people who I can make connections with, and who 10 years from now might be running a network. So I think that that's the biggest thing too, is don't underestimate something that doesn't sound as big, because it may be bigger.
That's incredible. And something I appreciate about you is just your ability to see opportunity in everything. Like, from the fact that you wrote a cookbook and you did that after writing in TV for a while, and you were so open and willing to take on that new challenge. I think that's incredible. And another thing that you've done that's really cool is you've pitched and sold your own show, right? You created that's amazing. What does it look like to take something from an idea through to the pitch to selling it? And like, what advice do you have to anyone who might have their show idea they want to get made?
Don't get discouraged, because 99 out of 100 will be no, but one will be yes. It can get pretty demoralizing sometimes, because you could come up with 50 ideas and everyone could say no. And it's just that one at the right time, with the right hook, with the right person to watch it. Going back to the cookbook for a second, the reason I wrote a cookbook and got to write a cookbook is because I had pitched this restaurateur as a Food Network show, and we had gone down a long road developing it, and then they turned it down. And we still loved working together, and she said, well, I've always wanted to write a cookbook. Do you want to write my cookbook? And we were still pretty bummed that this great TV show idea went nowhere, but I still wanted to work with her. So I said, sure, yeah, I'll write a cookbook. And now I have a cookbook. It's pretty cool. The selling the show thing, I think it's hard, because I think it's, everyone has these big dreams of, I'm going to write the next greatest, biggest show. And, the ones you hear about are 1 in a million. And there are those people who are kind of Teflon, and they have success after success after success. But when you really do have that moment of coming up with an idea and then getting it really solid, and whether it's, with a pitch reel or a deck or a script or a treatment or whatever it is, it means a lot. And so you don't want someone to crap all over it. You want someone to love it as much as you do, but you also have to realize that no one wakes up on the same side of the bed you do every day. And everyone has a million different things going on. So I have to keep reminding myself when I get really frustrated, like, can't they see how great this is? That I have no idea what's going on in their life. I have no idea what their series budget is, or what their boss is telling them, or what their ratings show them. You can be a mind reader as much as you want, but it really comes down to just that perfect moment of someone seeing it for what it is, seeing what you see, and having the ability to turn it into something. Not everyone has that power. And so you try and get to those people, and that's why you can't be competitive, because the people who you helped previously might be the ones who are going to help you down the road. So that's really my biggest thing of, I'll give any opportunity to anybody. When I left Dr. Phil, I suggested one person for the job. She got the job, and she was there for the next 17 years. So wow. What would it have mattered if I had said, no, don't hire her? It wasn't my job anymore. I didn't care. And I wanted her to be successful because I respect her. So right. She may have a lot more money than I do at this point, but I'm so glad she got the job.
It's how we can lift each other up. When we were doing research for this interview, we heard that you had 5 minutes to pitch Lincoln Logmasters.
I did.
And when we heard that, we were just like, we got stressed out, even though we didn't even have to do it. And so, I don't know, like, what does that look like? And what are with such limited time, what are the things you prioritize packing into that?
And were Lincoln Logs a part of the pitch? Did you bring Lincoln Logs?
Well, no, I did not have them in my hands. But where that came from was Hasbro had started turning a lot of their IP into shows because they were partnered up with a production company, which is why I say keep an eye on the production companies, because deals are changing all the time. So 5, 6, 7 years ago, Hasbro bought an existing production company called Entertainment One, and they bought it basically because they wanted, was it Peppa Pig or something? I don't remember how the deal went, but they basically bought this company so that the company could produce all of the things that they were creating. And so we started hearing about shows like Easy Bake Oven and Monopoly and Scrabble and all these different shows. And I said, is anyone doing anything with Lincoln Logs? Because Lincoln Logs in my childhood were a really big thing. And then thinking Lincoln Logs, HGTV, log homes, that was a no-brainer. And so I went to HGTV and I said, do you have any interest in Lincoln Logs? Yes, let's make it a holiday show. And I went, oh, I don't want to make it a holiday show, but okay. So I did an entire treatment with it being a holiday show, and I pitched it to HGTV as doing gingerbread cabins. And it went pretty far into developing a treatment and all the things, and then they passed. And then the people at the production company were like, I thought you could sell a show to HGTV. And they were kind of bugged. And they said, well, let's change it and let's make it something different. So then we put it back to what it should have originally been, which was a log home building show. They had an amazing casting team who found these two guys in Oregon in their 20s who had a log building company and shot a sizzle with them. And then I wrote a treatment of what the show would be and how each episode they would build something different out of Lincoln Logs. And at the end of each episode, they would brand the log with a Lincoln Log logo. And then it even morphed into them pre-building the homes with actual Lincoln Logs. So when I pitched it to Roku, I basically said, each episode's going to follow these guys. They're funny. They're in Oregon. They're young. They have families. They're crazy. And, logs are big time in Oregon. And they have to go, they have to go, on horseback into the forest and talk to some crazy logger about buying all these logs from him. And then they have to somehow get to the log yard. And then everything is really dangerous. And so there's this element of fear and danger, and then really cool builds. And they built a bus out of Lincoln Logs and made it into a beer garden bus that sold beer. They made a cabin, of course. They made a school playground. So there's all these different things that they could do. And so when I was on the call, that was basically what I said was, it's these two young guys. They got this company. They're really funny. They're going to build different homes every episode. There's going to be the element of danger, the element of surprise, and the reveal that everybody loves at the end of every episode, where their home buyer is going to be like, oh my God, I love it so much. And throughout it, we're going to see, someone possibly getting hurt and someone, them building these huge, huge logs into homes. And they liked it. So that was really cool. And then it only got one season. And I didn't get to retire, but other than that, it was really fun.
It's such a playful.
It's such a great idea, and it totally makes sense why it worked. And so you also executive produced that show as well, right?
So that one was a little different for me because by the time it sold, I had already taken kind of a day job. I had moved into more of the development aspect of things, and I partnered up with someone who was starting their own production company and became his head of development for a good 3 years. And so I was executive producer of Lincoln Log Masters, but not in the field. So I went to Oregon a couple of times while they were shooting. I got to see all of their dailies. I got to, have a say in every episode and every script and every shoot and post and all of that. But I was not boots on the ground like I normally am, which was kind of fun because then you get a check in the mail and you're not actually doing all the work.
So for the people listening, Cindy, what are the next steps for you? What's on the docket? What's on the back burner? What are you doing?
So let's see. At any given time, there's probably 3 to 4 things I'm doing. So right now I am still consulting on a pitch that I created last year for another company. And so we're still in the phase of trying to find a buyer. And then I like to joke that I'm doing a lot for free right now. So I'm doing that. And then I am consulting on a possible series upcoming. So we're just in casting stages for that right now. So I'm watching a lot of casting for that, which is really fun. I am writing my own novel. And I am also helping a friend write a novel. So, well, actually, his is more autobiographical. So it's a book. Yeah.
Yeah, I love to see that, and we'll absolutely stay tuned for it. One of the questions I always like to ask our guests is, we try our best to formulate these interviews in a way where we create a lot of opportunity for you to share lessons and advice with anyone who might be listening, but we're imperfect too. So is there anything we should have asked, or just any other pieces of wisdom that might benefit anyone listening?
Ooh, that's a good question. Probably, I don't think there's anything else you should have asked. I think if there's anything else I would offer is to not expect to start at the top, and that I think it's really tough these days, especially with how volatile the industry is, and take any opportunity you can get. And I think that that's kind of the biggest thing. Before I even went to college, I took every opportunity I could in the things that interested me. So I worked at a publishing company when I was 14. I worked at the school newspaper. I worked at the college paper and the college radio station. I interned at a radio station. I did all those things, partly because I wanted to just make my own money, get out of the house, buy a car, do all the things, but really because I had an eagerness to learn, and figured no matter what I learned, it wouldn't be a bad thing, and I think that the hard part now is there is this directionally challenged aspect of I have to do exactly what I told my parents I was going to do, or told my professors I was going to do, and if I don't do that, then I failed. And I think everyone just needs to remember that there's so many different roads leading to the things that you think you should be doing. And along the way, why not do the things that interest you? You guys are doing this. You're not getting paid for this, but you are building a huge resume, and looking at your equipment and looking at how organized you were in the days leading up to this, and what you were advising me that you needed to make it successful for you. You guys are already ahead of the game. So I think having your questions prepared, you can always maybe come up with a couple of lighter questions to throw your guests off, off brand a little bit. But you guys are doing a great job. So I think that it only gets better from here.
That's right.
We really, really appreciate it.
And then maybe one day you can hire me. And you can say, remember that lady? Remember that lady way back when?
No, we truly look forward to that day, and it's hopefully it's on the way.
I think it is. These are the things that make me feel more successful. When I look back at my entire career, and it's certainly not over, it is changing, but when I look back at everything, I look back and remember more so the people who, that day when I screwed up, I hate to say it, the director left, and he left me in shambles. The technical director made sure I knew how to do something. The tape guy made sure I knew how to do something. Those were the people who I will remember, because those are the people who basically told me it was going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that's what I think that everyone needs to keep in mind is remember the people who picked you up off the floor. Those are the ones that will mean something later, and that will reassure you when you're not sure about something you're doing.
Right. Yeah. That's great. Remember the people who pick you up off the floor.
And pick people up off the floor. If you see someone really struggling, even if you feel a little competitive with them and they're really struggling, and it's something that you could help them feel better about in 2 seconds, why not?
So I just want to reiterate our gratitude for your time.
That's right.
This has been extremely educational for us. I know we'll probably have a 2-hour-long debrief after this talking about everything we learned.
And then you're going to say, oh, we forgot to ask this.
Of course. There's always the one thing.
Which is always, reason to come back to this table, of course.
Anytime.
What an incredible interview. And if you want to continue learning, we also had the incredible opportunity to sit down with legendary cinematographer Julio Macat. He shot movies like Home Alone, Pitch Perfect, and so many more. If you want to learn from that conversation, you can click it on screen right now. Thank you so much for watching.